Let the hate flow through you.
To bolt-on accessories, to modifying your engine, to even complying with emission standards. Is the car scene really dying in California? Today in this video, I'm gonna find out why the Golden State might just be ruining its own car scene.
Got a hold over from having a modified exhaust.
You get handcuffed and you get an impound notice.
Street takeovers have really been happening more often across the Southland.
Residents, of course, are fed up and they want these dangerous stunts stopped.
Hot rods, to even today's takeovers, to today's street racing, a lot of it has to go back to our history. California used to be a huge supporter of legal motorsports, even had a decent public outreach to those who would illegally street race to get them onto tracks. However, now in today's modern car scene in California, it has been demonizing a culture by regulations and criminalizing the enthusiast. Even though the shift in interest from classic hot rods went to getting the hottest imports in California, the culture of illegal street activities has gotten worse. During the COVID-19 pandemic, street takeovers started getting popular when people were in lockdown and normal traffic on public streets became non-existent. Now, for those who don't believe that the street takeovers aren't part of the cult culture, I hate to break it to you that this is where the trend is going, even though I myself and many others don't agree with what they do. Is it any really different of what we did back in the early 2000s when crowds blocked off streets for illegal street racing? I mean, look at the bright side. They only keep it to one intersection. To the subject, so you may have seen on mainstream media more street takeovers or even more street racing. You may or may have not known that California's only solution is to either ticket the living hell out of those owners, lock them up, or even crush their cars to get those menacing drivers off the streets. Well, if you remember when I mentioned our history, back then, even though it's hard to believe, California did a public outreach to car enthusiasts and tried to meet them in the middle.
The inspection teams were getting good, so Officer Daniels decided to play a joke on them, see just how good they were. When Jim got that report, he realized he'd been driving a death trap. He was lucky to have gotten to the garage alive. Yeah, the Knights had made a believer out of Jim. Mr. Hanks and Jim Daniels went looking for a site to develop a good, safe drag strip. They found an old airfield that looked like it would fill the bill. It didn't take long to get the strip ready, and when the Knights staged their grand opening and their first-time trials in drag races, they were really on their way. The club began to impress people, the whole city in fact. The Knights were proud of their club and were out to build a new reputation for hot rodders, for courtesy and safe driving.
The parking lots and stands were filled to capacity as enthusiasts turned out in droves. Hot rodding has really come of age in the last decade. Since 1950, the sport has grown from only 2 active strips to the present colossal number of more than 250. This group from Washington represents the best in cooperation. Father drives, and the whole family acts as crew. Whether it's an airplane engine or a V8, there's always work to be done.
A word with one of the toughest competitors, Chuck Jones, of the Sidewinder crew from Long Beach, California. And then we were ready to take her down to the line.
From Oceanside, California, it's the Martin Nelson machine, the Masters Trackmaster. They'll be running down for a record run. With top elapsed time on our Chrontech clocks, a 9.12 seconds. The Nelson Martin machine, the Masters Dragmaster.
So you may be asking, why did I show you that video? Well, obviously for context. Even though the politics, culture, and the people have changed in California over the years, I just really wanted to show you that efforts back then were more progressive than the policies we have now. Demonizing any car enthusiast with extremely high fines, jail, or taking possession of their vehicle just seems outrageous and frankly, in my opinion, a waste of California's tax dollars. It just seems that creating more areas to people to race a car or to essentially hoon in a safe, regulated area is apparently too much for California. Instead, it's easier to get funding for more enforcement and passing of vehicle regulations. In essence, you as a car enthusiast need to bow down to whatever California says you want to do with your car and supposed to like it. And if that wasn't bad, politicians seem to paint a picture to anyone who modifies a car is apparently the main reason for being a public menace or why the reason climate change is happening. But I'll get back to that later. With the lack of legal areas for car enthusiasts and even more tracks and event areas dwindling each day along with additional government enforcement than outreach, you get more scenes like this.
As people hung out of cars while the driver does donuts and burnouts in the crowded intersection. The deputies from the Compton Sheriff's Station responded, but no one was arrested.
Take a look at the wild moment.
Wow.
Yeah, before a driver slams right into El Tarasco restaurant on Glen Oaks Boulevard and Polk Street.
A neighbor caught the aftermath on cell phone video. He tells us the collision was the loudest boom he'd ever heard.
Security video captured the moment of impact between a gray Infiniti sedan and this Toyota Camry. A number of homes along East 131st Street near Town Avenue are equipped with cameras that recorded what looked like two streaks of lightning going down a residential street. The CHP called it a street race.
Okay, I just had to stop the video right here because this last clip really bothered me. I know a lot of these videos there's been death involved, but just listen to this news reporter because it just kind of irked me in the wrong way.
With cameras that recorded what looked like two streaks of lightning going down a residential street. The CHP called it a street race.
I'm assuming this newscaster is not from California because you know what? Anyone that's from California will tell you, no shit.
It's incredibly dangerous, it's unsettling for the community, and the police department is aggressively going after these events.
Events like this one last month in Mission Valley, where a driver took over Camino de la Reina at Hotel Circle, endangering the lives of dozens of spectators.
So you might be looking at all these videos and you're just like, yeah, Nick, look, this is a problem that we have in this state. These people don't know how to control these cars. These people don't know what to do with these cars. They're just going in circles, they're closing off streets, and they're becoming a menace to society. Now, there is a little bit of hope. I did come across this video. What this news reporter actually talks about is some good information how to remedy this problem.
Mario and Oscar have been to their share, but they know the risks. They prefer to race on a legal track.
I drove my car on the streets dangerously, and I drove it at the track. But at the track, you could push your limits and not have to worry about repercussions, pretty much.
A lot of the racers say, we need tracks, we need places to go. Why haven't they got them? You know, we used to have some here in Los Angeles. The problem is the land is so cost prohibitive. Private operators don't want to operate them. Also, you've got a liability issue. Then the other idea is to try to find opportunities where we can either shut down local streets or do something on an interim basis, even if it is not a regularized event, and if it's infrequent, just to get people to do that, to have a safe place and a setting to do that.
Now in 2022, at the time of this video, California is actually putting their foot down, or supposedly what they say, by demonizing the car community.
The $5 million that would go to dedicated staff for the sole purpose of enforcing legal sideshow laws so that we can begin to crack down on this dangerous and reckless behavior. And then we also are asking for $500,000 for the CHP to inform and educate the public and young drivers on the dangers of illegal activities like street takeovers.
So let me hear that right. They want to spend $500,000 of your own tax money to re-educate people that already know that most street takeovers are dangerous. I mean, literally, you're in the middle of the street, and if you didn't know that being in the middle of the the street is dangerous, then I guess that's a failure of our education system here in California. Now, street takeovers seem to be the new target because here in California during the pandemic, they started really popping up everywhere in Los Angeles. I mean, they're still going after street racing also. For many of you that do remember, a few years ago, or now probably a decade, you remember them crushing cars? Now, this tactic didn't really work out because if anybody knows anything about car guys, they just go out, get another beater, and turn it into a race car. Now, if you think street racing and takeovers were the only thing that they were going after, it is not the only thing that California has their minds set on. Not only that, they go after people that are doing things illegally on the street, people from even out of state get targeted.
So make sure you go to the state referee, get the vehicle back into compliance before you go to court. Court date's at the bottom.
I'm from Arizona, so...
Do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, no questions.
Use your aggressive feelings, boy. Let the hate flow through you.
I mean, seriously, what has the state come to for pulling people over from out of state visiting just to go to Cars and Coffee? I mean, it's like the first day when a police officer goes into the academy. The first thing you see on the board is pull over any modified vehicle in California. And it's not only modified vehicles, it's even stock supercars. And there's plenty of videos on the internet that you could find of supercars being pulled over by ignorant California police officers. Now, there might be a little bit of a glimmer of hope, and the only reason why I say that is, maybe for all we know, that Los Angeles might end up taking their new SoFi Stadium and taking their parking lot and turning it into a race course. But, again, this is Los Angeles we're talking about, and it's only really a glimmer of hope. And now if we go look at the whole entire state, if police officers and even the CHP, which is the California Highway Patrol, stop doing their predatory tactics on people, especially with lowered springs, crazy paint jobs, loud exhausts, pretty much saying they need to stop discriminating against modified cars, new or old. If you brought in racetracks, whether it be government funded or privately funded, and have a place for takeovers to take and it's not really a takeover if you take over a parking lot or like a section of track, but if you have these places where it's regulated, safety barriers are in place, and there's places for spectators to watch these events, then the car culture of California might be coming back. Until then, California's car culture is in a decline. And the reason why I say this is not only because of the laws we have in place, it's partly because the car culture itself. When California turns around and demonizes those who end up on the streets just trying to get a thrill, and California's only solution to this is to demonize those with more regulations and more law enforcement, not only the citizens of California, even companies that have placed their businesses here in order to provide aftermarket parts, which is taxpayer money, for the state of California leave, not only that you create this spiraling downfall of a car culture, but an entire industry too. And few of you that might be watching this video might be thinking, well great, I don't want loud cars, I don't want fast cars on my streets. Well, the unfortunate news is the future is only getting faster. With electric cars being just around the corner, with faster acceleration times, adrenaline junkies will grab a hold of these cars just to push them to the limits on public streets. Therefore, more deaths, more innocent lives will be taken unless the state of California can meet in the middle and the car community. The state of California might just usher in a new car culture. If you guys made it this far in the video, definitely consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and commenting below with your experience as a Californian or being in the California car culture. Other than that, I have some news for you guys that I've moved to the Pacific Northwest. Now this channel's probably going to look a little bit different because I went away from doing my own repairs to doing repairs for another job, which I can't really say, or I don't want to be mixed into this channel. Other than that, subscribe, like that button, and definitely keep an eye out for new content because I have a lot more time editing these videos. Until then, my name is Nick, and this is Mechanic Build.